Today we are with Del Webb or DWB slash D. I don't know how to say it. Forgot it.
DWBT-DWLT,
Um,
something like that.
no, happy to be here with you today. Thanks for joining. He's been playing Star Wars for 20 years, and mostly casually gotten to GIMP a couple years, and you will see him all over there. And he's a great sportsman, and he has a deck which I would eager to talk to you today. It crushed me the first time we played, crushed many other people, and can't wait to share. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let me share my screen here, and then you can see what I'm seeing. And yes, I will allow this. All right. Okay. So you've been playing different versions of this deck. So this is kind of the deck you gave me initially. I think it was like last year or it was a couple years ago, whenever it was. And you have since gone on some modifications. So you kind of have been playing the ISB tractor beam base. I know you've kind
Yeah.
of gone a little kind of you've experimented a little different ways. It seems this seems to be your favorite, and this is the latest version you sent me. So maybe you could kind of talk about this and kind of how it works.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I guess we should have a caveat here at the beginning. Anybody watching this, this is not a power deck. It's not something that you would see played in a tournament that's going to do any, going to make any noise. And it has some artificial limitations that I put on it because I wanted to make sort of a themed deck. And the idea was when I first came to GAMP and played a few games, I kept getting completely wrecked by hidden base X Wings or EBO X Wings. They're fast decks. You'll get X Wings out really quickly. You can spread out, you can drain really fast. And so I wanted to build sort of an Imperial Navy deck. I wanted Star Destroyers to be scary again. And I wanted to be able to steal some of those X Wings that were causing me a lot of trouble. Uh, and I also wanted to do it without a lot of high powered characters. So you're not going to see Vader, Tarkin, Mara Jade, anybody with ability greater than 3. And there's one of those. Admiral Piet is sort of the star of the show in this deck. So that was where it started, was an Imperial Navy deck. I liked the ISB objective just because there's some good pilots that are agents and they can soak up a lot of damage in space, and you can bring them right back at the end of your turn from your lost pile.
Absolutely, that is one of the key features of the deck. And one thing I like, of course, is that there's two ways to do it, right? It's flip this if ISP agents control at least two rebel base locations or four ISP agents are on table. Most people do the latter. And one thing I always liked about your decks is that you have built the option to do the former, right? And so quite literally, with this version, I think you just need two ISP agents if you went for the planet. So you just need one ISP agent on a ship here and one ISP agent ship here. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. So Yavin and Hoth are the rebel bases. If you have agents at both of those and you control those locations, then you can flip the objective and they don't have to stay there. So what I've done oftentimes is plop down one at Hoth, plop down another at Yavin, and flip the objective and then put them at the same system by the end of the turn. Or you can do it if your opponent is playing EBO and they've got one of the marker sites down, put an agent down at the marker site, and then move them up to, shuttle them up to a Star Destroyer at the system where you have another agent, and then you can flip it that way.
Yeah, so in this case, they have to start with fourth marker, and then they have to start with first marker. So, but you have to control two. So basically, what you would control Hoth, and like you said, you control basically what the fourth marker, and then
Yeah.
just shuttle. You would try to do this in one turn. You would try to like deploy to Hoth and have a person deploy to the site same turn. Then you just flip, kind of immediately shuttle them up, and then you're out of there and safe.
And then watch out for Rebel Barrier. You don't want to get your agent stuck there without being able to shuttle back up because he will get boned the next turn. He's going to be in trouble.
True. So in that case, are you gonna wait if you see kind of one force being unused, or are you just gonna risk it? Or
Exactly.
okay,
Yeah, if I see that, then I'm going to expect Rebel Barrier, and I'll wait a turn or two until I can plop down an agent at Yavin 4. Or look, if they're occupying both, then I'll just wait until I can get 4 agents out, which isn't too hard um, with ISB.
Absolutely makes sense. So yeah, I think no, I think I like what you said. So obviously, yeah, you're right. Tractor Beam is a difficult deck competitively. It's not teched against a lot of things, but if you are facing a hidden base X-Wings deck, like you said, or like a hidden base where you have ships, I guess if it's not home, I think this deck struggles with home one, but if you like mostly any other kind of ship, you can kind of do well with. And I think the fact that tractor beams can steal the ship, which a lot of people don't see. A lot of people are not expecting this, and I think I saw you face Doctor Torch in another match. I think you won that match, but you surprised me the first time. Maybe you could talk a little about kind of the surprise factor, kind of where this deck kind of shines.
Yeah, and my video may have frozen. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I still hear you. Yep, we're all good.
Okay. Yeah, so I think a lot of people, when they see the objective going down, they might expect that I'm going to do undercover agents at sites. They're often not expecting sort of a Imperial Navy deck. And so they may start by, trying to control ground a little bit more. They may start to avoid ground, thinking I'm going to put agents down there. And there's no undercovers in the deck.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can kind of talk about how it works. So, I mean, obviously you have some tech here, right? So you have to have the tractor beams.
Yep.
I think it's interesting you have four in this deck, and obviously you need the tractor beam, and kind of everything else falls in place. So in range is huge because it's basically a +2 and it costs free. So saves you that force because normally it costs 2 force, which is expensive because if you have to deploy one of these Star Destroyers and you have to deploy a tractor beam and you have to use it, right? It's 2 force to deploy, 2 force to use. This is a lifesaver. So I think in your previous version you had three. I guess you've gone down to two. I think you had three tractor beams in the past. You've gone down to four. A little, this one, and then first catch of the day. Two tractor beam Destiny or cancel hyperscape. Very good. And then you have the tech of I want that ship. Whereas if it's a starship, subtract 2 from maneuver and punishes Falcon. If you can get it off. And I think
Yeah.
probably maybe the most devastating thing that can happen here, which absolutely killed me, is that they shut down the main reactor. Whereas you use 2 force, they can't move, they can't use their ability, they're stuck there, and kind of gives you kind of that turn to battle them, capture them, kind of whatever. Um, and I think in the games I've played with you have shown like restraint and patience, and you hold your cards at certain points. Maybe you can kind of talk about like how you decide like when to just go for it and when you decide to hold back, or kind of help people understand if they want to play this deck, how they should kind of go about it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I'm not the power player that some folks are on Geb, but I can tell you what I look for. One, what I'm going to try to do is corner a starship somewhere. So if you've got a lot of ships on one system, I'm going to try to isolate one of them by maybe moving there, waiting for you to try to move away, and then right before the last ship moves away, hit it with shut down the main reactor. Or I might use gravity shadow, same way. You know, move somewhere, try to make the enemy leave, gravity shadow, keep him there. And then something that a lot of people don't get about stealing ships, even if you have something like Lando in the Falcon, or you've got Red Leader in Red One, Gold Leader in Gold One, you can steal those, and the permanent pilot basically becomes, you know, a dark side character with the same abilities as the Lando that's in the Falcon. And Lando in the Falcon, a lot of folks play that, very low maneuver, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really easy to tractor beam that, and then your opponent can't play the Falcon anymore.
100%.
So,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's all about trying to isolate. You can do that by, starting a battle. You use in range to steal one of the ships that's there, and now you're facing fewer enemies.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I remember facing my Y Wings deck, and and a big factor too is something special planned for them because it takes +2 force to move away, and additionally, it's kind of an anti-retrieval card. It lets you retrieve, but that card's placed out of play. So if someone's doing on the edge, off the edge, or they're doing like our most desperate hour, some of those things. So that's kind of the protection. And when you're playing this, I guess I'm assuming you're starting mobilization points to get Executor, arrest order, and is your third one, is that usually going to be something special planned for them, or kind of what are your starting effects usually? How do you choose which ones?
Yeah, so it depends on what the other side is going to play. So if it's going to be a hidden base deck, then I'm going to play You Can't Hide Forever, um, and then pull out security precautions.
Okay.
If the opponent is going to be playing Throne Remains, I might start Imperial Decree. And if it's the same thing for Profit, just so that I can prevent the force drain bonuses, I might play Decree as well to start with. If it looks like it's going to be a deck that's going to play a lot of space, then I'll start something special. That way, it's going to be more expensive to move away from my Star Destroyers, which is really useful with the Swarm decks. If you've got 10 X Wings at a system, it's going to be tough for you to move away from the Executor there.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it's yeah, you're right. If it's an X-wing swarm deck or some kind of swarm deck, X-wing's the most popular, obviously. Yeah, you're right. That's devastating, and yeah, you caught me surprised when I was doing my Y-wing deck. So that's for sure. That's pretty bad. Okay. Yeah. So basically, you're trying to isolate if possible. You're holding on to a gravity shadow. And are you like intending to hold on Gravity Shadow because if it's an X, like, is this basically tech against the X-wing deck? Because I think you used to have a reactor terminal. So I'm guessing you're kind of shying away from doing that kind of tracking. Or you're using this blind, and targeting a low ability ship, or help me understand those situations you talked about.
So Gravity Shadow, yeah, it's generally for swarms. It can also be really useful against Home One. There's a lot of Destiny 2s in this deck, and the permanent pilots on Home One are Destiny 2s. And I've had the opponent completely lose Home One with Gravity Shadow with that matching draw. There's also some good sixes in the deck. And so even with Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, it can be dangerous there if he's on Home One.
You did kill my Luke one time. I was not expecting that. That is absolutely true.
Now that was luck. I am not the best at tracking. Usually, I'm just trying to play the odds. Like I know, hey, I've got a couple of sixes coming up. Let's gamble. Let's see if we can make it work.
Sure. And I guess one thing I was thinking about though, this Gravity Shadow says highest ability pilot, right? So home one has ability 4. So wouldn't you have to get a 4 to make the home one lost, or a 5, or am I misunderstanding
So
something here?
so technically, those are two pilots with each ability two, apparently.
Oh, okay.
So if you draw
Interesting.
three, you can't move. If you draw two, the entire ship is gone. If that's the highest ability pilot on there.
Interesting. I had no idea that's how it was coded. I guess that makes sense. Guess they could have technically been a 3 and a 1, but okay. Amazing. All right. Um, so I guess we'll talk about this. I want to go over some of these choices. So I haven't seen field promotion, right? Immune to demotion. Why do you have 2 of this card?
So what I'll switch out every so often, depending on what I'm seeing a lot of, is three or four cards that address what are people playing. So right now, one of the most important cards in this deck is Admiral Shirano, however you say that, who will make your force drains at systems where you have Star Destroyers +1. So you plop them at a battleground system, force drains there +1. Force drains at any system within 2 parsecs where you have a Star Destroyer are also +1. And so that can be really powerful if you throw him on Yavin. You have a Star Destroyer at Kifex, you've got a Star Destroyer at Hoth, maybe even up to Fondor. You can drain, 9 per turn if the other side isn't, engaging at those systems. The problem is, though, if you hit him with demotion, which I've been seeing a lot of, his game text is canceled. That doesn't work anymore. And so I'm toying with field promotion, um, so that that'll cancel demotion
Makes
and
sense.
immune to
Yeah,
alter, which is nice.
for sure. Yeah, no, it's true, and I think one of the pitfalls in this deck or some of these decks is that you really need to be able to force drain with punishment because these are some really expensive ships, right? Even
Yep.
if you get the discount from Fondor, Executor is expensive. You got to put a pilot on them, and then yes, if you're putting the tractor beams and all that kind of stuff, you need to be able to do more than one damage. And
Yep.
maybe one of the more frustrating matches, I guess, is like I guess mine what you have learned because they can like do Jedi Test 1. They can kind of
Yep.
cancel these bonuses. So whenever you can get them for sure, if you're facing Prophet, absolutely, you gotta beat their initial retrieval. You have to be able to force drain quickly,
Yep.
for sure. Um, and I guess some other tech here. So obviously homing beacon combined with I want that ship. I've used homing beacon myself in some kind of a previous game. I saw it in Rabbits. This thing is very useful, being able to move for free because when you
Hmm.
combine this with something special planned for them, um, as long as like your ship is big and hefty and they can't just battle easily, then like it's hard for them to get away, and so you're kind of
Yep.
winning the force race. So I really like this inclusion, and of course you have landing claw, which damages you. So both homing beacon and God hurt destroy landing claw. I'm guessing you got landing claw a couple times, but you have two
Yep.
ways to two ways to get rid of that. I really like. And yeah, I guess in your previous version, I guess you had a couple of grabbers, and I guess you've gone down to one. So I guess the issue is that starting with oppressive enforcement, was that just too difficult to do, and you're just down to one now for a grabber, or I'm understanding.
Yeah, what I found in the games that I had played was I had to commit to the tractor beams, and the best way to counter senses was with tentacle and control. So wait for your opponent to play sense, play tentacle, and then play control. Sense is now unique, and they can't play it again that turn.
Oh, interesting. You really are taking advantage, like the text of it's unique. You're right. Most people don't play it for that, but that's true. You're right. It is a hard counter in that way, I suppose. It's true.
And that's where this deck will struggle too. So in range, first catch of the day, shut down the main reactor. None of them are immune to sense. And so if you're playing a deck with a good amount of senses in it, you've got to be able to stop that.
Absolutely, because it's a critical moment, and this is kind of be make or break for the deck. And so, do you have an idea of kind of like when your plan comes to fruition, right? And it's a target. So, I mean, I guess if we're just a lone X-wing, um, they can forfeit the X-wing if
Mhm.
you don't do in range, in time, kind of thing. I guess obviously this deck really shines when you're able to kind of people don't expect the tractor beam deck and get it. Can you do you have like an idea of like how much you can like when you're winning, like how much are you winning these battles by, or can you give us some scenarios for that?
So you can overwhelm swarm decks pretty quickly, especially if you can isolate one or two ships on a system. If the opponent either doesn't keep enough force to move their ships away, or you can gravity shadow or use shutdown to trap a ship somewhere. Uh, and I've seen games where I've got um, the homing beacon on a ship. They force drain and they forget that not only can you move one ship, you can move one ship to react to the force drain, but if there's a battle there, you can move all your ships. And I've seen power 50, power 60 in a few cases. Now that's about as powerful as you can get with this deck. But you can win these battles pretty heftily. Now, I think it's I don't I never know how to say it, but there's the card on the light side where once you forfeit everything in the battle,
Yeah.
then it satisfies the remaining battle damage and attrition.
Yep. Yeah. 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 Who,
Who
yeah. Who
jinxed?
jinx? Yeah. Who jinxes your enemy if they have this?
Yep.
That's true. Yeah. You don't have a first strike here, right? You don't have that ability. I'm
A
guessing.
better version of this deck probably would have that.
Okay.
Yeah, first strike would be powerful. Again, it's artificially limiting the characters that I've included. So Vader plus Tarkin would be powerful, canceling a destiny. Mara Jade, if you're going to go against Prophet, would be good.
It
But
could
I
be.
just made the decision I didn't want to include those characters here.
Understood. I didn't realize you had that restriction. I assume you just wanted to stick to space, and because these extra characters were kind of hefty and expensive in addition to ships, but I didn't realize that was a conscious, kind of a flavor decision. So
Yeah,
okay,
just sort of thematic. Make Star Destroyers scary again. That's what I wanted to go for.
absolutely. And so, I think obviously Executor absolute must have, and I think
Mhm.
you have Devastator. You have an ability two. There's a limited amount of ability to Star Destroyers. Some of them have one, some have two. Help me understand this one because you have the Tyrant, okay, and I get this one, adds +1 to Destiny draws, and you have, of course, Captain Lennox, who also has the ability to use a tractor beam to your control phases.
Yeah.
How often do you think this +1 makes a difference, or Lennox's, tractor beam, control phase ability? How often does that work for you versus not work?
Against a swarm deck, it's great. It can work if the opponent is playing landing claw, and you can cancel the landing claw during your move phase, hit it with shut down the main reactor, and in your next control phase, you don't necessarily have to battle it. After that, you can use Captain Lennox to tractor beam him during your control phase. So he's useful there.
I guess what I'm wondering is that obviously you can get them during the control phase, okay, and if you're able to get it off, great. And if it's a swarm deck, if you have a bunch there, I guess I'm wondering though, like if it were alone, like if it were like a lone X-wing by
Mhm.
itself, would it oftentimes be better just to battle it and just not use this ability, or help me understand those things?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, if it's just one by itself, you're better off, initiating battle against it. Sometimes I just like to tractor beam and steal the X-wings.
It's no, it's really demoralizing, honestly. When you see your ship stolen by the enemy and you have one or two ships, and you can forfeit this thing for 4 force. I think I was playing one deck and I think I got a Corvette, and you stole one of my Corvettes. I mean, look at this big hefty, you can forfeit this and power five. I mean, it's if you can get that off, it's absolutely awful.
Yeah.
It sucks for the opponent. There's no
By
doubt
the way,
about
I
that.
liked
Yeah.
that Corvette deck you had.
Yeah, no,
That
thank
was a
you.
neat deck.
No, thank you. No, I mean, I was inspired by Party McFly, and obviously, just recently, inspired by, COTBG. So
Mhm.
no, absolutely. No, it's a fun deck. It has its limitations. It's kind of like this deck in the way that, it's good against certain things and other things, not really.
Yeah.
But it makes it thematic, makes it fun. So let's talk about the other scenarios. So obviously a swarm deck's good. I mean, obviously, the light side, a very common one is the home one deck. Unfortunately, tractor beams aren't good against home one by themselves because, that's the one, except Mon Calamari, that's the one thing you can't grab.
Yeah.
In that situation, I guess it just comes down to, who has the most pilots, who's able to, get the most battle damage, attrition,
Yeah.
whatever. And I guess this is why you have two Dengars. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
This is home one and Falcon giving you trouble? Is that what it was?
Well, that plus, if you're going against a swarm deck, he's going to be power +1 for every ship that's there. And so that's or +1 to the destiny
Yeah,
draw.
correct.
And so that's powerful. But yeah, it's to cut through the immunity to attrition for home one for Falcon. Um, that can work out nicely.
Right. And then yeah, home one's a very common one. The other one obviously is the Falcon. So obviously there's two versions of the Falcon. There's the one, I think the one from Premiere, and then there's the one from Indoor, which has
Yeah.
slightly, one higher maneuver, but it's a little bit harder to get both. So how does this deck face off against the Falcon, right? So, if it's, Captain Han Solo, he'll add two to this. It'll be like a six maneuver. Do you
Hmm.
find yourself able to capture, the quintessential Falcon most of the time, or help us understand that how that ends up going?
So normally, what I'll be looking for is, I want that ship, putting that on the Falcon, waiting for when you have both in range and first catch of the day. And if you can get him at the same location as Tyrant, then that's, Destiny +7 right there with those interrupts. And you can capture it uh, more times than not. Now, there's versions of the Super Falcon, the Super Duper Falcon I've seen that get the maneuver up to 12 or 13. You plop R2D2 on there with a special modifications plus, some other modifiers. And I have been wrecked by that a number of times. A few maneuvers. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. If you do the Super Falcon, like I saw Worm Time do this. Sorry, it's General. Yeah, Worm Time, he had a deck he used against me, but yeah, he did this Lando, which adds one maneuver with this one. So it makes that a 6, 8, 10, 12, you know, 14, whatever. You potentially if you get all these cards there. So you're right. No, I think if they have the Super Duper Falcon, if they tech their deck, even this deck, although strictly speaking, what if you did I have that ship, that'd be what minus that'd be effectively a +2,
Yeah.
4, 6, 7, and I guess you could do this. You could get
Yep.
plus
Small enough
11.
membership, you could add another 4.
Yeah, you could get plus 11 versus maybe they're 13, 14. So uh it'd still be hard. It's doable. If you had all your tech versus all their tech, I think you'd still win on average. Just a question of you could get it all in your hand, I think.
Right. So it's a lot to have at the same time.
Absolutely. So you are still using We Have a Prisoner. I haven't seen that actually in use yet. But tell people about this one.
So that's useful. So, for example, if you capture the Falcon and there are passengers or pilots, if you capture it, it just sits, in the holding area of your Star Destroyer, basically. But if you can use We Have a Prisoner and you can capture all of the characters on board that ship, then you can actually use the Falcon. You can steal it and use it, um, and that's fun.
Okay, but to use it, okay, obviously if it was okay, I guess if they had Lando with the character there, you could capture the character and you could lose Lando nationally. If you capture kind of one of these Falcons, you just have to what? You have to like give Captain Lennox or one of your ISB agents, and they just fly it like that, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. Point man, obviously, order to engage. Really, really nasty card that is everywhere. It's just so
Yep.
good for light side, so you have
Everybody
some
plays it.
defense. Well, it's hard not to. It's just so
Mhm.
it's so cheesy. When I was a kid, I had no idea this card was any good. No idea. Only on Gemp and Modern Day do you kind of realize that. Um, and then set for stun. Um, talk about this a little bit. Is this kind of like an anti-wedge? Is this kind of like you'll kind of target Han Solo, and he's not so scary if you set for stun? And help us understand this, this
It,
card here.
it can be. Oftentimes, I'll use that late game against a profit deck. So against profit decks, this deck will struggle unless you can get a lot of your Star Destroyers out early, spread them out in space, do a lot of drains. What I'll try to go for is spread out in space, get Blizzard 2 on Tatooine somewhere with some ISB agents aboard so that all of the force drains are -1. And then late game, when you're sort of just counting, oh, hey, this turn I can drain 9, opponent's going to drain 5 or whatever. If you can set for stun Han Solo and prevent one turn of your opponent being able to force drain, or, you know, you lose force due to having Lando or Leia or Luke at a battleground location, then for that one turn, you can save quite a bit of force, and that can make the difference late game.
That's true. You're right, because Prophet requires Han to be on Tatooine,
Yep.
not a
Can't
captive.
force drain without it.
Yeah. So yeah, flip this card captured or not on table. Yeah, very true. I never thought about that. That's a cool use.
And then occasionally, if there's a pilot that's giving you trouble, Wedge in, his Return of the Jedi form, where he's with another, rogue or red squadron pilot can cancel destinies. If you can get rid of him for one battle, that can be really useful.
True. Or if you get rid of his buddies. So most of the times his buddies are, their ability too. So
Yeah, true.
So you could get rid of this guy and Wedge can still be there, and he doesn't have a buddy, so he's not going to be able to cancel anything. So I think that can be highly necessary sometimes because one way to frustrate any kind of space deck, ground deck to some degree, but space more so because you can't like shoot this guy, is just canceling destinies. So you have one way to get an extra battle destiny here, which is Imperial Command. Other than that, you Wedge would be kind of frustrating for this deck.
Yeah. Yeah, especially sitting on home one, battling your Star Destroyers. If they can cancel your destinies, you're not going to be able to do much damage against it. Um, but Imperial Command is really useful for a couple other reasons. One, it can reduce the opponent's destinies, right? You can limit it to one, which is powerful against the Falcon. Or in the early game, if you need to get out Commander Marajek, you've got to go and grab Piet, who can grab Marajek, and then you can start deploying your systems. And that's always really the first play of the game, is trying to get him to the executor docking bay so that you can start getting out Yavin, Hoth, Kifex, and start draining.
I agree with you, and maybe we can talk a little bit about systems. Because when I'm playing kind of like a dark side space deck, I'm usually like very inclined towards kind of like the two drainers, right? So
Yeah.
you have some of these, right? So obviously, Kifex is a two drainer here, um, but there's three other ones. So I guess I'm trying to understand is like why, like I guess is the issue no Sullust, no Endor, no Kashyyyk is just because they're too afraid, too far away from Hoth and Yavin 4. I know some of these use Kessel because they kind of like deny the light side version, which is drain +1. Also here it's starships deploy -1. Have
Yeah.
you ever like experimented doing with 5 systems or 3 systems? Why these 4 systems? I guess out of your choices here.
Yeah, so it's the dual use of Yavin and Hoth as rebel bases, where that's useful in flipping your objective. It's useful for Imperial Decree to cancel the opponent's modifiers to their force drains. Um, and sitting Shirano at Yavin, then you can get the bonus at Kifex all the way up to Fondor at 6. And so I've never really gone for Endor, Sullust, Kashyyyk, just because you can't meet the requirements of Decree if you're playing purely space that way.
No, that makes sense, and you're right. I forget because it's an ISB and an Imperial Decree bonus. I guess the question
Yep.
would be about Kifex because you're right. The only way to be within 2 parsecs is if Shirno is at Yavin,
Yep.
but you could also have Shirno at Hoth, and then it could be 2 parsecs. You could have Sullust, and you could have 2 parsecs be Kashyyyk potentially. Now, obviously, Kashyyyk potentially would be a 5th card. Um,
Yep.
is there an advantage you think in having Kifex versus Sullust, for example, or Kifex versus Kashyyyk in your mind, or is it just never kind of come up in your games?
The other reason I have it there is so that I can get to Coruscant if I need to. So if the light side is playing a pilot that's a spy and they deploy down to Coruscant, um, I need to be able to get there with Executor, and I have to have Kifex in order to get there.
Okay, because Executor only has 2 hyperspeed. You do have the droid, but you don't want to depend on the droid to get
Yep.
there. Yeah. Okay. I didn't think about it. Yeah, and the light side could deploy the light side version of Coruscant, which is annoying. But yeah,
Popular. Yep.
yeah. But yeah, you're right. Because how this deck works for homing beacon to work, you do need to have a mobile executor and not lock them out. So okay, that makes
Now, if
sense.
you can get that droid and Captain Goddard on the Executor, you got Hyperspeed 5, and you can surprise some ships that are hanging out at Coruscant and react all the way from Hoth.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, 5-0. That's true. That'd be fun. All
So
right.
the reacting with homing beacon can catch people by surprise too.
Yes, this is not a common card. Maybe it's becoming slightly more common with you and Rabbit playing decks like this, but no, it's not a common card. It very much seems to naturally go with capital starships because of something special planned for them. Any other kind of ship, this isn't quite as useful. But
Yeah.
no, it's a powerful combo. All right, cool. I guess any other thoughts here? I guess the always question. I guess you have fence in here, anti on the edge, off the edge. I'm guessing
Yep.
some people abuse that too much. So you thought it was too much to let those slide even with something special. I'm guessing here.
Yeah, I got hit a couple games by people who are really good at tracking destinies, and that has saved me a few times. Where even if they make the draw, uh, the destiny isn't high enough to even retrieve anything because he'll reduce it what by three, I think.
Yes, correct. Yeah, no, yeah, it's a big minus. Yeah, correct. So it makes it much harder. Most people are doing with fives, may occasionally a six, but it definitely gives a lot of oomph, makes it a lot less retrievable for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the only other possible thing we could talk about is kind of alternate cards. I know you have like you've tried doing a set your course for Alderaan version of this.
Hmm.
Um, I maybe you could speak a little bit about that one, because this one, you start with Death Star docking bay, you start with more force, potentially. You do invite yourself open to kind of an extra battleground site.
Yeah.
Talk about maybe some of your experimentations, maybe, and kind of other versions of the space deck you've got done before, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the set your course for Alderaan version, I did include some more of the heavy hitter characters, Vader, Tarkin, the Emperor, Mara Jade, uh, and I didn't like it. I really like the aspect of this particular deck that is really just Imperial Navy. I don't know why.
Yeah,
It almost feels more like a scavenger kind of deck in some ways. Um, I like the idea of how far can we push this without having, some of those really common characters in the deck. Can you win any games without them? And so I like that idea. The set your course for Alderaan version. I've gotten a few wins with that. I really like playing pure space.
I get you. I mean, would you say your version was more powerful? It was more consistent, or would you say it's like about the same in terms of power, or was it worse than power than your ISB version, or how did it fare in that way?
You don't have as much ability to retrieve your pilots that you might forfeit to absorb damage. So, for example, if you've got officer evacs and you've got, I forget one of the starting effects basically makes all of your Imperials of ability less than three forfeit plus two, and
Yeah.
so that's Ozzel, that's Marajek, that's evacs. Um, Captain Lennox, and you can forfeit them for quite a few force, absorb damage, except for Lennox. You can't bring him back once you forfeit him from the loss pile, but the others you can, and that's powerful. I like that.
Do you think that the ISB version makes a difference? Obviously, you've tested a lot more than me because I have tried. Like, if you like, I kind of made my own version here. I was trying to think, other things I could do. Because like there's a U3PO. You don't have a
Yep.
U3PO. You don't have that kind of version. People love to attack your sites. I think I told you one time use Coruscant docking bay just as an alternate way to get pure decree, but I think that the issue is if you're TRM base deck with spies, they're going to get you here too. I think that's the
Yep.
problem. If they want to get you, they're going to get you.
Yeah, and that's key with my deck is you've got to move your characters off of the docking bay as soon as you can because the spies will come and they'll drop down. Uh, an ability to spy and follow it up with Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan, and then wreck your guys that you've got there at the docking bay. So you've got to try to get to space as soon as possible with this deck. The other key too is once you flip the objective, is all of the force drains are -1 for locations where at a related location you have an ISB agent. So that's powerful if the opponent's playing ground. If you can get an agent in Blizzard 2 at a related location, you can reduce a lot of their force drains, which you can't do with Set Your Course for Alderaan.
Right. I think actually there's that one droid, this expensive guy, right? So, I mean, he's not undercover. He's one of the like the traditional ones to use them. Is there a reason you decided you didn't want to use, 5d6 or a7 because you could plop them on Tatooine for profit unless they had a, like sorry about the mess, then they're gonna be -1 force drains Tatooine, and you wouldn't even have to battle in that case.
I think that's the key is that so many people will play sniper or they'll or sorry about the mess and just kill them right off the bat.
It is possible. Of course, they kill them, you can retrieve them, but of course, if you only have one of them, it's kind of true. So, I guess I'm curious, like, how well does like your Blizzard 2 with your Outer Rim Scouts, hold up against Prophet? Is this just kind of delaying tactic to kind of like slow them down? Does that usually work for you? Help me understand kind of how your tests have gone.
It works sometimes.
Okay.
And you've got to try to avoid battles in that case. So try to avoid Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker on Tatooine and move them around, um, because that's what they're going to try to do is battle you and make you forfeit your agents that are on board. And so you can load up passengers on Blizzard 2 and use that to absorb damage. That's been successful. But Prophet's a tough matchup for this deck.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Profit is unfortunately just so quick, and you have Master Loot, just deploying for free. It's just, if it's built properly, it's extremely fast, and
Yep.
there's very few discounts. Okay, minus 5 for Executor. Okay, all right, that's about it. So,
Yep.
no, I agree. That's a tough one there. I think I had some
But it's
other
fun to try.
ideas. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's fun to try. Um, I'll generally start with the two Outer Rim Scouts at the audience chamber. Sometimes I'll move them away first turn just to try to, save them. But oftentimes a light side can deploy Master Luke right there. Return one of them to your hand as part of the first battle, and I've been wrecked many times that way.
Yeah, I don't recommend it, unfortunately. Yeah, it's too easy, and then they
Yep.
retrieve right again. So, no, I agree. No, I think if you're going to deploy the audience chamber, you generally need Mara and Saber or Dr. Evazan, or you need to already have like a Java and like a Buelo, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so I did do some play tests a little bit. Okay, with some other ISB tests. Okay, so I made like a Bring 'em Before Me deck, kind of a version. I had like many of the similar cards. I played it today. I have no idea how good it is comparatively. Um, I tried doing like the two of, kind of the two of the main cards here.
Hmm.
You had 4 tractor beams. Am I going to get wrecked if I do 2 tractor beams? Like, help me understand. Like you could do more tractor beams. You didn't like do. We're in attack position now. Um, is there a reason why you chose not to do this particular card, or just space reasons, or help me understand?
Well, yeah, I don't. it probably would be a good card to include.
Okay. I only ask because when I look at this deck, obviously, Executor has the attrition immunity. Tyrant doesn't, Devastator doesn't, Death Squadron does a little bit.
Yeah.
And I get the Tyrant. And one thing I always ask is, Death Squadron Star Destroyer, one ability. You have to have 2 pilots there unless you somehow move, Piet there. Is there a
Yep.
reason why you didn't go for like, Chimera? Um,
Chimera is probably a better choice. Um, Part of it is just I think that I was kind of starting from scratch, and uh, I don't know. Chimeras would be a better choice, I think, than Tyrant or the Death Squadron Star Destroyer.
yeah, no, I
But
mean,
Tyrant just looks so, or Devastator. Devastator just looks so good.
no, it is good. I mean, it's a little bit cheaper. I mean, it's one force cheaper. I mean, that's the only reason why I like the we're in attack position now, just
Yeah.
so that I can get a little bit of immediate attrition. Now, if they're if they're a Super Falcon deck, if they're like loading up on Captain and Leia and Leia with blaster rifle, we're gonna lose something. I mean, that's difficult.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of for me. The the bonus to like -1 deploy. It's one of the few ways to get Vader to be deploy, of 5. It's one of the few ways
Mhm.
if you deploy him as a pilot. But that's the way. The only other thing I thought of is like, Twilight Advisor. Several decks have 2 of these. There's no Twilight Advisor here, so I'm wondering if you think there's a reason to do Twilight Advisor, because I think like if you didn't start something special, it's like really good to get. Or if you wanted to get, you don't have a lateral damage in this deck, I guess. Yeah, if you don't have that one, but or
No, I used to play that a bit, but, there's the Moncal character that can cancel that basically everybody plays when they deploy home 1, and so I've just found that it's less useful, um, and also, one card that's also very powerful against this is Han's Toolkit. With Han's Toolkit, you use 1 force, you can cancel any interrupter effect that is targeting one of your ships. So that's a very good counter to an interrupt heavy dark side space deck.
I've only seen this used against lateral damage in my past, but it does say any interrupt effect. So supposedly that would stop. They've shut down the main reactor. I don't know if this
In
stops it
range,
retroactively though. Like I assume if you use this and then next turn they draw this, I guess you can't cancel it. I have no idea, honestly.
I don't think so, but definitely you can prevent in range. You can prevent first catch of the day. Um, it's it can ruin my plans.
For sure. Um, and so I think there was one card I was experimenting with. I think it's the one that lets you deploy a tractor beam. Yeah, it's this one. Is the reason why like I can't shake him. So obviously you don't have a starfighter with a starfighter weapon here. You do have a tractor beam. Is the reason you wanted to have 4 tractor beams rather than maybe like 3 and one can't shake him, or help me understand kind of that thought process.
I think part of it's just if you're playing a deck that's going to try to cancel your interrupts, then there's a chance that you can lose that. I like having 4 just so that I draw 1 early. That's probably a good option, though, in a lot of scenarios, is replacing one of those with "I can't shake him."
Yeah, just a thought. I obviously I haven't tested nearly as much as you. I just like the higher destiny, and
Yeah.
when I just see the Falcon, I'm like, I gotta have high destiny from these ridiculous bonuses. I gotta do what I can here.
Yeah.
Um, projectile telepathy nearly necessary nowadays. Anger, fear, aggression is just too useful.
Yep.
The 2 force to start a battle can save you sometimes. I think that's the same. Otherwise, I don't think I did much different than your deck. I did do a Monarch. I was kind of surprised you like your deck is teched against like X-wing swarms, but you didn't do a Monarch, which can also kill them. Is that just a
Yeah.
flavor choice, or you hate Monarch, or help me understand that one?
Yeah, it's kind of the same way with, like, where I wanted to forego some of the higher power characters. It just I hate getting hit with, the light side version of Monarch, and
Yeah,
so I just don't like playing it. It would be powerful against swarm decks, certainly.
yeah,
Yeah, Grimtosh. Oh, I hate
yeah,
that guy.
yeah.
But,
No,
that's part of the game, you know? That's, you gotta be ready for it and you're gonna get hit with it, and that's okay. I just hate that card.
no, I understand. It's when I was a kid, my younger days, I did not understand Grimtosh and Monarch. I didn't understand why they're so powerful. I didn't understand why barriers were so powerful. And then you go to GIMP and you learn real quick, why these are good cards. So I agree with you
Yeah,
there.
I mean, some of the top players can play decks with very, very few characters, heavy on the interrupts, and they can do a lot of damage just based on that because they can stop your plans. They can, with Grimtosh, they can put all the cards you had in your hand that were going to be useful next turn. They can put those back in your used pile, prevent your characters from moving or battling with the barriers, and so, they're powerful. Man, I just don't like them.
I got you. what about like the anti-barrier card? Like, what about blast door controls? I'm
Yep.
guessing maybe this isn't as necessary because you have the shut down the main reactor in your deck.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I used to have that, and I'll switch that in and out periodically. I've just never been able to get it out early enough to make a difference.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't have the advisors, then yeah, it's gonna be harder to get down the blast door controls, and then maybe I can understand that for sure. So no, it makes
But
sense.
again, there's probably a better version of my deck that has more of the Twi'lek advisors, blast door controls, monarchs, um, that can do all of the same sort of the tractor beaming, but also have some more protections against some of the other deck types.
Yeah, no, it's possible. So I was just doing a little experimentation in preparation for the call. So I fought a Corvette's deck, and luckily I was able actually to beat that one.
Nice.
I have to see how obviously against space you're very good. Against ground mixed, I have to see. I have to experiment more. But no, this no, I've enjoyed my games against you, and seeing like the attractor beam deck and work against you makes you realize, oh gosh, there's another avenue that we can get creamed. And no, it's really great, and I appreciate you playing it. And any other thoughts you want to share with folks?
No, hey, I love the fact that this game that we all kind of fell in love with 30 years ago and died 25 years ago is still available to play, and props to the players committee who's kept it running all these years. I don't love open, but that is what's kept the game going. That's what's made it available for us to play retro. So um, big thank you to all the folks involved with that.
Absolutely. Likewise, I am of a similar boat. I'm really grateful to the people that keep this get going, and I'm grateful for another way we can share a hobby. So cool. Well, thank you, Dell. Eager to share this with everybody, and take care,
Awesome.
sir.
You too. Good talking to you.
All right, take care.